Horseshoes, said to bring you good luck, but I think that's rubbish because if it was true, everybody who played the game of horseshoes would win. Hello, I'm Lawrence and I'm on a quest to uncover all of the memos that Britain and America lost in the pond, and one of those memos pertains to games, and specifically outdoor games. You know, if there's one thing that this pandemic has made me realise I'd been taking for granted, it's the ability to go outside and play things like tag, which I've just realised I haven't played since I was 9. And we didn't call it tag in Grimsby, we called it Tiggy, which just goes to show that where you live could determine the name of both a game or the game itself. And that brings me on to my life in America. The United States of America is a very vast land where it's all fun and games until somebody gets hurt, and then it's called a snowball fight. It's alright, that was 9 years ago, I've recovered now. But because it is such a big and mysterious land, there are actually several outdoor games that I was not familiar with until I moved to America. Now inevitably we'll get to the end of this video and Uncle Toby and YouTube user Prince William Official will write something like, what about baseball? What about volleyball? What about hide and seek? Look, I did all of those in Britain. The point of these videos is to highlight how America has shown me different ways of doing things, and because they just get way more traffic. It's mainly that. And so without further ado, let's take a look at 5 outdoor games I only encountered after moving to America. To my British viewers, I promise you here and now that wiffle ball is a real sport and not something I just made up on the spot. Basically, it's a variation on baseball, except there are some key visual differences. Number 1, the bat is weird. It's long, yellow and plastic and looks like a dime store lightsaber. And number 2, the ball is also plastic and very lightweight. It also looks like one of those things you'd put in a washing machine, which is excellent for removing grass stains. Now it turns out that America has various varieties of variations on baseball. Wiffle ball appears to have emerged in the 1950s, named so because the first kids who played it referred to a strikeout as a whiff, proving once again that British and American kids are no different. They'll name anything after farts.
To get this official-sized practice ball and this unbreakable plastic bat, get these boxes of grape nuts flakes with my picture on the back.
As for me, I played wiffle ball once during my first summer in Anderson. It was a mishmash of players, including me, some people, some children, and a dog called Bam Bam. And I remember it being a particularly enjoyable game in which I drew immense satisfaction from the sound that the ball made. The problem was the game had to be abandoned because Bam Bam refused to return the ball and ran off into a field. So the next game we played, we used a ball that wasn't particularly dog friendly, and he was barred. In what I believe was still the summer of 2009, I played softball with those same family members in a yard, in my grandmother-in-law's yard. And I'm not saying that was a mistake, but put it this way, next time we played she insisted all the windows be open. Traditionally though, I'm told it's normally played on a diamond. In many senses, it too is a variation on baseball, just with bigger balls. And I didn't know this until about 7 minutes ago. Softball was a product of the very city from which I am now speaking. Invented in Chicago in 1887, the earliest known softball game took place on Thanksgiving of that year, kind of. Attendants of the Farragut, I don't know how you pronounce that, boat club had gathered to hear the outcome of the Harvard-Yale football game. Once the score was announced, all hell broke loose as Yale and Harvard supporters started throwing a rolled-up boxing glove at each other. One bright spark picked up a stick and swung at the glove before a ref turned up out of nowhere and declared play ball. Within a week, a reporter for the Chicago Board of Trade, George Hancock, just casually invented softball when he created a 17-inch ball and a tiny bat. Interestingly, the sport was originally conceived as an indoor sport, primarily for baseball players to hone their craft during the winter months and for children to decimate their mum's ornaments. But despite its American origin and despite my having not heard of it until I moved to America, it turns out that there's a British Softball Federation. So why hadn't I heard of it? Well, outside of Premier League football and outside of random Cubs trivia, I'm pretty ignorant about sports. That said, I also judge the popularity of something by the size of its Wikipedia page. And on that score, I'm not sure too many people have heard of the British Softball Federation. We're going to get complaints from them now. Horseshoes, said to bring you good luck, but I think that's rubbish because if it was true, everybody who played the game of horseshoes would win. Nonetheless, the game of horseshoes is a sport in which two people or two teams throw horseshoes at sticks. Now I know that sounds really odd, but hear me out because there's a scoring system and everything. I don't fully understand it, but my interpretation of the rules is this. When a player throws the horseshoe completely around the stake, people clap. And from what I understand, this is called a ringer. Oh, and there's a straight edge involved. I think that's to determine that the ringer was complete. Anyway, as you can tell, I've never played the sport in my entire life. It's just cruel, really. I'm just thinking of all the horses in their stables going, what a waste of footwear. But I have seen the game in action, and I have to say, sod the horses, it was bloody amazing cheering on Billy. I was so enthralled with his magnificent technique that I thought, what a shame I'm not playing right now. Because one little known fact about me is I'm surprisingly proficient at throwing stuff. Thank goodness then, for this. It's weird, I know, but I never encountered axe throwing in Britain, even though I'm likely descended from Vikings who saw their axe as marriage material. My first and so far only encounter with axe throwing came at the Maryland Renaissance Festival in Crownville, Maryland. Basically, several people line up and hurl their mighty weapon at what is essentially a glorified dartboard. The goal is to get as close to the center of the board as possible. I'm pleased to report that I won this prize medallion for doing just that, and I've since been renamed the Duke Lord of Maryland. My axe throwing exploits also enhanced many people's beliefs that underneath it all, I'm really just a medieval badass Han Solo. By all accounts, axe throwing originated in North America in about 2006, coincidentally when Nickelback were at their peak. But since I've been living here, it looks like somebody might have accidentally thrown an axe all the way to Britain. Because since about 2016, when British people clearly had an axe to grind, pun intended, axe throwing establishments have been showing up across the country. As of 2020, the same does not appear to be true of this. Here's a game that goes by many names: Cornhole, Bags, Beanbag, and best of all, Sack Toss, which definitely means something else in Britain. For those of you not in the know, and that includes some Americans, Cornhole is basically a game where you get points for throwing a beanbag in a hole. It's often played at tailgate parties, but my own experience of it is playing it on a lawn with family members or colleagues in Indiana. And the location there is important. Firstly, it seems to have originated in the Midwest. Secondly, everyone I played it with seemed to be of the opinion that this was an Indiana thing. I almost don't have the heart to tell them that I saw some kids playing it down the street in Chicago. And so I was confused. Is this just a Midwest thing, or was it legal elsewhere? To get more insight on today's secret live stream, I posited this question to my patrons, who are quickly becoming my Google. Who's familiar with Cornhole? Raise your hand if you are. You can't do that because you're not here. Just say in the comments. Linda says yes. Lauren says yes. Nancy says, I've never heard of it. And Nancy, you're on the East Coast, I understand. Uncle Toby has never heard. Well, Uncle Toby, you're from the UK. Ah, so people have played it in the parking lot at Oakland, at the Oakland A's game. So this magical game of Cornhole, which for 12 bloody years I thought belonged only to the Midwest, has been set free, much like my mind. As for my record playing the game itself, I'm pretty Problem is, I'm simply too good at throwing, and the beanbag usually ends up in my grandmother-in-law's window. That's it for this episode. Let me know in the comments below some of your favourite outdoor activities and whether or not they were covered in this video. For more maps, facts and stats and pictures of my cat, follow me on Twitter at LostInThePondUS, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that my videos don't get lost in the pond. A Google-size shout-out to my patrons, or a patron-size shout-out to my Google. If you would like to become a patron of Lost in the Pond and support everything we do here, you can do so at patreon.com/lostinthepond. Until next time, I'll be staying in the house, so for me it's a game of Seen It and a bowl of Cheese Whiz. Goodbye.